was addicted to cocaine, freebase cocaine. I didn't save myself. I couldn't.
He was a rock musician searching for meaning. Then a chance encounter in India set him on a path he never expected.
I always felt I was missing something. There was a piece missing, and I was always looking for that somehow.
Krishna Das found a new kind of stage and a new way to heal himself and the world.
Attributed to a miracle and the ability to keep letting go and coming back home. If we let ourselves be destroyed by what's going on in the outside world, what good are we to anybody?
Join hosts Martin Luther King III, Arndrea Waters King, Marc Kielburger, and Craig Kielburger for a conversation about starting over, finding your purpose, and the wisdom learned along the way.
You promised me now you would give up cocaine. From that moment to this moment, it was like,
welcome to My Legacy. Today we're honored to sit down with an extraordinary guest who has spent most of his adult life sharing the transformational power of chanting with the world, Krishna Das. Now your friends call you KD, and your biggest fans call you KD. Is it all right if we call you KD?
no problem.
Oh, that's very kind, because you've got 4 fans and you've got 2 super fans, if I can call them out, especially. You got Arndrea and you got Marc, who would fly anywhere to hear you perform. KD is known as the chant master of American yoga, bringing the ancient practice of kirtan to global audiences and helping countless people find solace and connection through music. He has recorded 17 albums, performed on some of the world's biggest stages, and even earned a Grammy nomination for his work. Now, as our listeners and viewers know, what makes conversations on My Legacy unexpected and unique is we don't just hear from extraordinary individuals, we also hear from people who know them best. KD, would you start off, please, by introducing your guest, Nina, and sharing what makes her such an important part of your life and your work?
For sure. Without Nina, I'd just be home watching TV. That's the truth. Nina's, she makes it possible for me to get out there and do what I have to do. We met a long time ago, and then she invited me out to lunch, and I said, we're going to spend a lot of time together. We're going to be together for a long time. And since that day, it's been full time. Really, she's extraordinary. Not only, she sings better than me, and she studies chanting and the real Indian tradition. I'm kind of the New York via Long Island Indian tradition. She's got the real stuff. I call her up when I wake up in the morning, where am I? And she tells me. So,
Literally and figuratively.
Literally. I travel so much, sometimes I can't even find the bathroom in the hotel room,
We understand that.
Yeah.
Katie, you mentioned a moment ago, India via Long Island. That's a rather unique journey. And in My Legacy, we talk about people's origin, what made them who they are. And so I'm curious, can you reflect back a little bit on your childhood in Long Island and any of the early indications that you would become the extraordinary Krishna Das?
First of all, I don't see myself as the extraordinary Krishna Das. There was always something missing in my life. In fact, I go out to dinner maybe once a month with some of my old high school friends. And there's a couple of people that usually dominate the conversation, both lawyers, by the way. They weren't there that night. So one of the women said to me, who I've known now since, 1960s, she said, so why did you go to India? I went, whoa, somebody's actually asking me a real question here. So I said, well, I always felt I was missing something. There was a piece missing, and I was always looking for that somehow. And she said, oh, I never felt that. And that just broke my heart. Because I saw that, whatever it was that was pulling me and leading me in my life, and she didn't have that. And what it is I think the recognition that there is something to find, something deeper in life than what appears on the outside and the surface. And some of us have finished the journey, and others of us are like on the way. But that's a requirement, is that longing. And I always had that.
You actually were the head of a rock band, right? The Blue Oyster Cult.
It was a bunch of high school kids from Stony Brook, where I was at school. And a friend of mine, they met a friend who was a little older, and they started, smoking, and they started to they wanted to have a band, so they needed a singer. So he invited me to come play with them, and we hung out for a while, but they were too young and too stupid, and I was too old and too stupid. So we went in different directions. A few years later, they had become fairly well known as the Soft White Underbelly. It was the 60s, And I had met Ram Dass, who just lit my life up in a new direction. But I went back to school on my way up to see him, to live with him. We went to a Jimi Hendrix concert.
Wow.
And after the concert, we were hanging around, and the manager of the band said, the guy who replaced you, we have a whole recording, but the guy who replaced you can't sing. Come back, cut the vocal tracks. We have a tour. And this was my dream. This was being handed to me. But I had tripped and fallen in something much deeper, much more fulfilling. And that was when I met Ram Dass. So I just said, nah.
That's an amazing story.
But look at now, what do I do? Right? I travel around, I sing to people just like I always wanted to do it. And I can do it sitting down. I don't have to work out all the time.
And I must say you are a rock star.
Here. Well, Nina, I can't stress how incredible, and Krishna Das, how meaningful this conversation is for all of us, including me. The first thing we wake up in the morning is listen to your music. In the evening, listen to your music.
Thank you.
I get emotional just thinking of your music, because you and your music, and Nina, by definition, you and your entire presence, your music connects me to consciousness. Krishna, you were talking about your relationship with Ram Dass and just how amazing that was and how much it had an impact on you. Ram Dass, of course, for those who don't know, Harvard-trained psychologist, wrote that seminal book, Be Here Now, spiritual leader. Can you take us back to those days, and what was that relationship like, and how did you guys become friends, and how did he have an impact on your life?
Well, when I walked into the room where Ram Dass was sitting, I felt this spacious, wide presence, like the sky, And from that moment on, there was a part of me that was always aware of that. Like we walk down the street, we don't even know, we forget the sky's there. But the sky is so vast, and everything's inside of that, Nothing can be outside of that space. And then when I went to India and actually got to the temple where the Baba lived, it was confusing at first, because how did that all fit in there, in that body, It was this little guy wrapped in a blanket. It's very hard for us in our lives, in our relationships, in our interactions with the world and everybody in it, to trust in the goodness of people, even if they don't know it, even if they don't feel it. We all have that place within us that is pure beauty and pure love and pure goodness. And being in India with the Baba, my heart just developed this feeling of trust in that situation, and that allowed it to relax and let go of a lot of the programs that are always running, telling us we're not enough, we need this one's, we want this, we don't want this, we're afraid of this, we like this, the stuff that kind of rules us and limits us. So being in that presence with that being, it was a beginning of training, really, to let go, which, by the way, is what happens when we chant. The way I share the chanting is the way I do it. You sing, and then when you notice you're not paying attention, you sing. That's the whole thing. Nothing else is required. And when we let go of the stuff that pulls us out of ourselves, we fall into that deeper place of goodness and love and kindness and compassion and all that.
Your guru used to say, love everyone, serve everyone, and remember God. How do you do that every day?
Well, I wish I listened to me more. There's a funny story. So one day, he was very angry, and he came to the temple. And when he walked in, the guy who he hated the most handed him a plate of food, because we were being fed across the courtyard with Maharaji sitting there watching us eat. And he took the food and he threw it in the guy's face. right in front of Maharaji. Maharaji goes, Ramdas, something wrong? Come here. Ramdas goes and sits down. Maharaji says, what's wrong? And Ramdas says, I can't stand impurity in myself or in others, right? So Maharaji looks Ramdas up and down a few times and he says, I don't see any impurity. And Ramdas just broke out crying, right? Maharaji says, Ramdas, love everyone and tell the truth. So Ramdas said, the truth is, I don't love everyone. Maharaji leaned in a little closer and said, Ramdas, love everyone and tell the truth. And that became the star that he followed his whole life. And you know, he had a catastrophic stroke and he lived for over 20 years in a wheelchair. But he used to say to me, the stroke saved my life. So,
And why was that?
because there was stuff that he couldn't get to inside that was driving him, making him unhappy, causing suffering. And he just wasn't able to get to it. But once the stroke happened, he had no option. He had to be with it and he had to surrender to it. He couldn't change what was happening. So he had to find a way to live with the situation and not let it destroy him. And that idea of loving everyone and telling the truth, when those two things finally came together for him, when you were with him, all you felt was that love. And everyone was in it. And which is so unusual for a Westerner. We don't think, we don't, in a sense, you could say he became like a saint, you know.
Nina, your grandfather, I believe, brought you or introduced you to chanting. Can you talk about him and how that experience occurred?
So we grew up outside of India a lot. My father traveled for his work, and we would go back to visit my grandfather in a small village on the coast of India, where he was retired. But in his home was a harmonium. And he started singing this prayer to Ganesha, who's one of our deities that are worshipped in India. And it was done in the most natural, beautiful way. He said, all right, I'm going to sing this line and you repeat. That was it. And it felt natural. Everybody came. Later that evening, people in the village came and sang in what we call satsang, where everybody comes together in community and does practice. But the way it's done in India is it's not really an event. It's just something that happens on a regular basis in people's homes, in temples. And that's how I was first introduced to it, and it really stayed with me. Because I didn't do it much after that. My grandfather passed away until I met Krishna Das. Without knowing, and I had no idea who he was. I didn't know what was going to happen. I actually thought I was going to leave the yoga retreat because I saw somebody and I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be a Westerner or a failed Indian musician. I don't know, I think it's going to be terrible. I really had all this.
She knew me right away.
And I had never seen him before. And when he walked in, I thought, this is worse than a failed Indian musician. But as soon as he sat down and he started Om, I moved from the back of the room to the front of the room,
Wow.
not knowing how. And, 3 hours later, there I was. And in some ways, I never left. That was my connection. And I said, it was just the most amazing thing, this retreat. And they said, he sings every week at this yoga studio. And I said, really? And they gave me the tape and I put it in my car and I didn't stop listening to it until basically the tape broke.
Wow.
And I found out that he was singing at this yoga studio on every Monday. And we connected, we became friends, and he would pick me up, remember, going down FDR Drive? Yeah. And those days he ate cheese, and so we would go and get nachos. I just felt I wanted to support him in whatever way. There was no business to manage in those days.
Yeah, there was no business.
There was no business. There was no business. But he did need a drummer, and I learned one beat.
So can you explain what is unique about the type of chanting that you do, kirtan, and how can it speak to our hearts?
Well, as Westerners, we have a hard time believing there's anything beyond Mickey Mouse, because I live in a culture that doesn't really support that so much. So even though I've kind of absorbed all this from India, when I'm also Western, when I sing, I don't ask myself to try to make anything happen. I simply keep coming back to the sound of the mantra. These are the names of God. And I find that this practice trains me to let go of the stuff that holds me down, that weighs me down, the shadows in our own hearts, and the ability to keep letting go and coming back home for a second, letting go, coming back. This brings the inner strength that actually helps you overcome just about anything. It's an inner strength that you get from these practices. And if we want to love everyone, serve everyone, and remember, if we want to do that, we need some strength to do that, because this world, especially these days, doesn't support that kind of thing easily. So each one of us has to find a way to connect to that deeper place.
And it's interesting because for me, for many years, I worked monitoring hate groups and hate crimes, such as the Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazis and skinheads. And one of the things that I had in my office was that we must never become like that which we're fighting against, which is a quote by Bell Hooks. It was my North Star. And so it's one thing to have that, on your wall, but I also had to find a way of looking at such topics. And we also would monitor hate crimes. And so I had to find a way to continually to make sure that I would not become like that which we were standing against.
Sure.
And one way that I did that was through your music. So at night, after kind of being in that world all day, I would come and put the CD on and, find a way. I would begin my day and also end my day as a way to clear out the energy and radiate, to be for something rather than against. And so for all of those years of that, I thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. But it's true. That's what the power of chanting is. And it comes from an ancient spiritual tradition. And it connects us with that place within us that's deeper than all that other stuff. Gives us a chance to take a breath in a deeper place and be able to let go of all the reactions and the stuff we have to deal with every day, all day, inside and outside of us,
Are there any other types of music that both of you tend to listen to and enjoy that also brings, like for me, obviously I love your music. I love gospel music. It brings me to that same place.
Oh, well, when I'm really messed up, I have to listen to Ray Charles. Especially America the Beautiful. Boy, if you want to, how can you bear that? It's so beautiful.
That's a good song for now.
Yeah.
Yes.
But, just growing up in the 60s with rock and roll, it's still a place where I go back to a lot. And the weirdest thing is now on Facebook, because of the way my likes, I'm getting to. I just saw the Stones, from 1965. A black and white video of the Stones. This is the music that changed my life at that time.
If you were creating your playlist, besides kirtan,
who would be on
Ray
it?
Charles, who else
The
is on it?
Stones.
Ray Charles. Well, Ray Charles, Van Morrison, Steely Dan. They were friends of mine. Tibetan chanting is. I really listen to a lot of Tibetan. There's an incredible Lama who lives in Paris, actually, and teaches in French, a Tibetan. Actually, he's Bhutanese. And they made a CD, which really was, I listened to it for years, nothing else than that for years. It's called the Lama's Chant, actually. It's fantastic.
I love for all of our social followers, they're going to be putting out the Rolling Stones, Van Morrison, and the Tibetan chants. I just love that combination. Scrolling won't change your life, but subscribing just might. Tap that button and stay connected to conversations that count.
Now, Krishna, you have gone through this path, but equally you've had some struggles along the way, especially upon the passing of your guru and how challenging that was for you. And if I'm not mistaken, having to even numb yourself with drugs at some points during that process. How did you overcome that? And what advice do you have for people who are in that depths of challenge to find a sense of purpose and hope in such challenging times?
People ask me a lot. I get a lot of questions about addiction because I was addicted to cocaine, freebase cocaine for 2 years. I don't know what to tell you. I was saved. I didn't save myself. I couldn't. I was out of here.
What do you mean by I was saved? I couldn't save myself.
For instance, I had become addicted to cocaine, and my Indian father, with whose family I lived for a long time in India, came to America to visit the Westerners. Actually, he was in Canada first, so I flew from California. I stayed in my father's apartment. I was up all night smoking freebase. Next morning, I get on the plane and I fly to Montreal. I get a car. I drive out to the country where he was staying. I walk into the house and they say, "Oh, he's upstairs." So I walked up the stairs and I saw him sitting in a room talking to somebody. His back was to the door. As I got towards the door, I stopped and I started to back away. I don't know what I was feeling, but I didn't want to go in that room. And at that point, he had his back to the door. He turned and he pointed to me. He goes, "You promise me now you will give up cocaine. Promise me now." I just looked at him and I said, "Okay." I couldn't say no to him. I wouldn't. I couldn't. It was too much love. I mean, I couldn't. I just said, "Okay." From that moment to this moment, not even the thought about it comes. And you know what that's like. I mean, addiction is addiction. And I wouldn't have been able to do it myself.
Well, what do you attribute that to? His love?
I would attribute it to a miracle.
Mm.
I mean, what else can you say? I wouldn't be here. My mother was an alcoholic, although she was clean the last 20 years. But I didn't have it. I didn't have the wiring to live this long. And they, for whatever reason, it was like, okay, let the kid live.
Wow.
And, I don't know why, but here I am.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
I wish I could give you some advice, but I can't.
So, Nina, I'm fascinated. You've said that kirtan or chanting is a way to clean the mirror of your heart. What do you mean by that? And how have you been able to do that through your work?
One of the main practices that I actually learned from Krishna Das, even though it's something that's been going on in India for a long time, is a chant called the Hanuman Chalisa. And there's something in the power of the mantra, the chant itself. The word mantra comes from man and tra. Man means mind, but it's the heart mind. It's not necessarily the place where thoughts are, but it's a place where understanding takes place, where we in our heart and our brain come together. And tra is a tool or an instrument of or for the mind. It's a way in which to also create new thought patterns in our mind. They call it Navashabda Samskara. So we're born with thought patterns, and I don't know where they come from, but they come and go. But how do we not get pulled away by that? So it's almost a purifying process in the hearing and the repetition of these words and names.
And the idea is that when we look out at the world, what do we see? We see our likes and dislikes, our preferences. We see what we're afraid of. We see what we want. We see all these things. It's colored. It's a subjective view, which everybody has their own subjective view. These practices, and what that is, you're looking in a mirror that's covered in dust. What you see is the dust. So when we look out there, what we're seeing is the dust, which is our stuff. So through these practices, that dust is polished off the mirror. And then when you look in the mirror, you see what's true. And then what's true, of course, is that oneness of all of us. And even the people we don't like are just as much divine as we are, but we don't see that because we're stuck in our reactions. So these practices and the letting go, like coming back when you're chanting, just letting go, coming back, letting go, coming back, that is cleaning the mirror of our hearts so that we experience directly real love that doesn't come and go, that you don't get from somewhere, that you don't fall in or fall out of, but that's our true nature. And then when you see that in yourself, you see it everywhere. And then are you going to be bad to your foot? Everybody's a part of the one body, so why would you do anything to hurt anyone if you're seeing that? That's what India is really And, you know, Eastern spirituality is much more about that oneness. Love everyone and tell the truth.
I think we as humans all hopefully derive inspiration from somewhere. And I can often look to my dad and the prophetic messages that he had that even to this day, even though they meant delivered over 50 years ago, they're still relevant to this moment. Where do you derive your inspiration for the work that you're consistently doing throughout our planet?
For me, it's the guru. You know, it's nothing was real in my life until I met him. And then being in the presence of these incredible beings in India, his devotees, his families, how they lived with such devotion to truth, devotion to treating everyone as family, you know. And the way we were accepted. I mean, we were a bunch of idiots, you know. We didn't know how to get down the street, you know, and they were so kind to us and so loving and so supportive. The way I saw him treat everyone with love and affection, the miracles that fell off of him, you know, just like rainwater off a, it was amazing just to watch that. But it was all in the service of helping people and relieving suffering.
Krishna Das, I was wondering, how were you bestowed that name, Krishna Das, servant of Krishna? And what was that experience like for you?
Well, I told you about Ramdas. Ramdas had a Volkswagen bus in India, and we were driving it around. We'd drive to the temple every day from the town with maybe 16, 17, 18 people in this little Volkswagen bus hanging off the top, on the roof, off the back. And it was making such a scene that I think Maharaji snapped his fingers and the bus broke down. But before that, he says to Ramdas, Ramdas, you're a saint. You shouldn't drive. Give him the keys. So I got the keys to the bus, and I got my first name, which was driver. For about a year, I was driver, right? So I wrote in my diary one night, I said, well, everybody else is, you know, this or that, Kali Das, you know, Ram Das, this Das, Bhagavan Das, you know, and I guess I'll be driver. Not so bad. The next day I get to the temple and I get called into Maharaji's room, and he looks at me, he says, Arjun, nahi, Krishna, nahi, Krishna Das. And I said, Krishna Das? I'm a Ram kind of guy. I'm a Hanuman guy. What Krishna? And he laughed. He said, it's okay. It's okay. Hanuman, with the monkey god, is Hanuman, the perfect servant of love. He said, Hanuman served Krishna too. It's okay. It's okay.
It was interesting because it feels like you both have talked about how in India in particular, spirituality is infused into everything. And I find that certainly throughout the East as well, like, you know, it's different than in the West. And so also the chanting and kirtan, it also, Mark said it connects him with consciousness. It connects me with sacred, to remember the sacredness.
Yeah.
Which we, you know, so it's that reconnecting with that part of us that we don't get as much of
Yeah.
in this part of the world.
It's the mother of the world, really. I mean, it's so many of the traditions come from that earth in India, you know. And they actually say that the earth itself, the ground, supports spiritual awareness. There's something in the magnetism or the vibration of the earth there that makes it easier for saints to live there.
Wow.
It's just a holy place. I mean, not just because there's been thousands and thousands and thousands of years of seekers wandering around looking for that love all the time, you know. So it has an effect on a place.
One of the things that I'm struck by this conversation is the remembrance of the connection between India and the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
I was thinking about Ram Dass, and it hit his guru when you think about the fact that Martin Luther King Jr. found such inspiration in Mahatma Gandhi and utilized that technology in order to transform our nation and world, to utilize that, as Gandhi called satyagraha, that soul force, and that torch was also passed and utilized to change our nation here as well. So even from a political sense, we have so much a debt of gratitude to India.
Yeah.
I will say, as it relates to India, I also was just thinking about Martin's father's quote that to other countries he comes as a tourist, but to India he came as a pilgrim.
Oh, lovely.
So Krishna Das, can I just ask you, I mean, there's so much chaos in the world right now.
Really?
Yes.
I had no idea.
Really? Well, you keep on chanting because it's got you in a good space. So with the chaos that we are seeing politically, culturally, personally, what and how do people find peace in all of this?
Well, that's what I do all the time.
What do you mean?
If we let ourselves be destroyed by what's going on in the outside world, what good are we to anybody?
Mm-hmm.
So our job is to find a way to live in the world in a good way and to be engaged with the world, but not to be destroyed by it. We can't let ourselves, because then we just suffer and everybody else suffers, and there's no benefit for anybody.
Absolutely.
So these practices are not just for ourselves; they're for everybody we meet, everybody we see, everybody we've ever met or ever will see. Every time you bring a drop of water into the world, it adds to the relieving of thirst. So every drop of love, every drop of caring, every drop of compassion, of thinking about others. The main teaching in the East is don't think about yourself. When I was having a nervous breakdown, and I was hallucinating, I was being pulled into this black hole in the ground. I was out of here. Maharaji called for me, and I ran away. And I said, Baba, what's wrong? Just don't think about yourself. How do you not think about yourself, right? Because that planet of me is what all our thoughts orbit around. So it's only through some kind of practice, whether it's devotional practice or meditation, or it doesn't matter, that trains us to release that stuff again and again and again. And we all come back ultimately to the same place, because it's the same. Now, you said consciousness and you said sacredness. They're not different. Consciousness isn't just like something kind of cold awareness. The qualities of being is consciousness, awareness, love, and happiness. They're all one thing, and that's what we are inside. And that's what these names are the names of that place inside that we chant the mantras.
One of the things that we are working on collectively is a project called Realize the Dream. And our goal is to have 100 million hours of service by the 100th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. In order for us to remember that place of connection and community and love and peace, as a way of us to come together and work together and stand together. And I know, Nina, you've done so much in conservation and community building, and I think we all would like to know how you see the connection between spirituality and service.
Well, it takes us back to what Maharaji said, right? And what he said to Ram Dass also: love everyone, serve everyone, and remember God. I don't see them as different. One is a pathway to the other. One sets the intention for the other. And the practice is the remembering of God. And the way that you were saying, what keeps you grounded, is like finding a way to bring that into serving others in whichever smallest way, one-on-one. It doesn't have to be a big organization of any kind. It's just try to help people who are in front of you. And, for me, my connection with the environment and the nature is a big part of where I feel grounded.
Katie and Nina, as I've listened to you, what's overcome me is this sense of peace. Because when Marc asked his question a few moments ago, preambled the chaos in the world, and Katie, you jokingly said, "Really?" I thought there was a gentle tease, which of course it partially was, but more than that, you talked about there isn't always the chaos in the world, because we can find the peace. And just listening to the two of you has been beautiful, to remind our listeners and our viewers of the idea that it's simple things we do. From our voice, our gift of a chant, the simple acts of service, how we create this positive impact in the world. We've had some extraordinary people in this conversation, but only the two of you have ever brought such emotion and such devotion to Marc to bring him to tears. And so I want to invite Marc to close with his words.
Yeah, just on behalf of all of us, just thank you guys, for all of us and all the listeners. I'd really encourage our listeners not just to listen to this conversation, but to listen, to deeply listen to this conversation, because your words are so profound, so loving, so important. And what you guys do every single day is you help to reconnect. You help to reconnect people to themselves. You help to reconnect people to others. And you help to reconnect people to our world, including our natural world. So thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for helping to bring consciousness back in such a powerful way. Thank you for introducing people like me and my family to consciousness. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, both of you.
It's wonderful to meet you.
Thank you all.
Thank you for joining us. New episodes drop every Wednesday with bonus content every Thursday. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss a moment.